Hello, everybody. Welcome to my weekly live Q&A. My name is Danny Segura. I am a mixed martial arts reporter for MMAJunkie.com. And yes, as I said, welcome to my weekly live Q&A where I take your questions regarding everything mixed martial arts and combat sports plus anything else that you guys want to talk about. So the way this works is pretty simple. I requested that you guys submit questions via Twitter. Some of you guys did that, so I'll take care of those questions at the very beginning of this video. And then in the later portion of this video, I will be answering questions straight from the YouTube live chat. So if you, again, didn't have time to submit questions via Twitter, no worries. You can do that in the live chat. So just drop questions in there, and I'll scroll through them and get them done towards the end of this video. A couple of notes. Please remember, subscribe, like the video if you like it, of course. Also, remember the super chat is open, so if you want to support this channel and just help me upgrade this whole experience, you can do that and put in some money in the super chat, and it'll go 100% directly to this channel. So as you know, I probably look a lot better, or a lot more, maybe not better, but crisper, because due to the live chat donations, I was able to buy that light up here that you guys can't see, but shining down my face at this very moment, and I've bought other equipment along the line. So anyways, without much wait, let's get into it. Also, remember, these things are always on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. though. This was an 8:30 p.m. Start time due to some scheduling things that I had going on, so I had to change the time, but usually they're at 7 p.m. So anyways, let's dive into the Twitter questions. Not a huge number submitted this week, but still a decent amount, and they were good like always. You guys always killing it. A couple right at the buzzer there that I wasn't able to put in the system, but I will read them, so they won't be featured on the stream, but I'll read them out loud. So let's get right into it. Brandon Music asks on Twitter, is the winner of Dustin versus Hangman, meaning Dan Hooker, going to get the loser, how this guy wrote, of Khabib versus Justin? So you spelled loser wrong, and also Khabib as well. But it's all good, Brandon. Good question. So, yeah, we got a pretty important fight coming up here on Saturday, UFC Vegas 4, if I'm not mistaken, at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. And it's a big lightweight fight involving a former title challenger, a former interim lightweight champion, a longtime contender of the division, taking on basically one of the up-and-comers, a guy that's on his way up, that hasn't fought for the belt, that's proving to the masses that, he's a world-class fighter, and he'll try to continue that on Saturday night. So that's Dan Hooker. So it's a really good fight, one I'm looking forward to. For those that have been following me for quite some time, this fight's been rumored a lot. So there's been plenty of talk about this fight itself. And yeah, I'm really excited for it. I think it's a great fight, and there's a lot of implications here. Now, I don't exactly think the winner here will get a title shot. Obviously, Conor McGregor's still in the mix. Obviously, we still have a title unification bout that's yet to be booked and pending between Khabib and Justin. So a lot going on here. But as you mentioned, the winner here could get the loser maybe of the fight. I think if Khabib loses, given the fact that he's such a big star, depending on how he loses, I really do see him getting an immediate rematch. I'm not a fan of immediate rematches, as you guys may know by now, but certainly within how the UFC operates, you got to imagine that's a possibility. I mean, he's a big draw. He has a lot of leverage within the UFC, and he sells quite well. So it'd be in both Khabib's and the UFC's interest to put him in an immediate rematch if he were to lose to Justin Gaethje, of course. Now, it's a big if. If Justin Gaethje now were to come up short and not be able to secure the title, that's a different story. I really don't think he'd get an immediate rematch. Even if it's controversial, I really don't think so. I think this is his chance, given the fact that Conor is in that mix. And also, he would have to fight then a contender, and this could very well be an option. We know that Dustin Poirier is down to run it back with him. Recently, speaking with my colleague Mike Bong over MMA Junkie, he said, yeah, I'm interested in a rematch with Justin Gaethje. That was a fight of the year contender, an amazing performance by both guys, and I think one that fans would want to watch. So I think, obviously, keeping in mind that if Dustin Poirier were to get past Hooker, I think, yeah, he'd probably fight Gaethje if he were to lose. For Dan Hooker, I think that could be likely, especially because there seems to be a little bit of a I don't want to say rivalry or bad blood, but there's been some friction and some comments between Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje. So I think to your question, I think it does apply only on one side, and I think that side is Justin Gaethje. I think if Khabib were to lose his belt, he's getting an immediate rematch no matter what. Or maybe he might even walk away from the sport. Who knows? He's made a good buck, and he's not the most active fighter in the world, so it's not like he's someone that has to be in there. And we know that he also has other priorities, and his life is not just fighting. So, yeah, that's how I would see that going if the winner here could take on the loser of that title fight. Only on the Justin Gaethje side. So the next question, I actually put it on a little bundle package here. So it's going to be 2 questions, but they kind of hit the same thing. So I didn't want to address them individually because then I'd kind of be repeating myself. But they're still kind of a little bit of individual questions. So here we go. So it's 8 Paths of Wokeness and MMA Fan. So 8 Paths of Wokeness asked, it's all centered around leg kicks. He asks, are we going to see Volk and Hooker with leg kicks against? Or again, I think he means. Well, it's ultimately a win with the fans. It's ultimately a win. The fans usually hate it, like Condit versus Diaz, and they usually seem controversial. And then MMA Fan asks right below, do you think Dustin's weakness to leg kicks, Gaethje and Miller had success with it, will be an issue versus Dan Hooker, who game planning with City Kickboxing team to do that a lot? So yeah, great question surrounding leg kicks. I think to answer the very first one, I think leg kicks have kind of changed and evolved as the game has progressed. At some point, and the Diaz versus Condit is a good example. I mean, those leg kicks obviously did cause some damage. It's not like taking a leg kick is chill or in any circumstance comfortable, right? It does have to cause obviously some level of pain and certainly it scores for the judges, as you mentioned there, so it definitely counts and works towards carving a path to victory. But I would say that leg kicks at that time compared to now are getting a little bit more dangerous. They're getting a little bit more they're coming at different angles. They're coming with different parts of the leg. They're attacking different parts of the opponent's legs as well. So leg kicks have changed over time. And recently we've seen a few fights get stopped via leg kicks. If not, have leg kicks be a significant part of the fight. I mean, one that comes up to mind that recently happened was Alex Perez, right, versus Jussier Formiga. That fight ended via leg kick. And I believe there might have been another one on that same card that also ended via leg kicks, but I can't recall right now. But we've seen plenty. So it seems they're getting a lot more dangerous. The oblique kicks, the kick to not only the knee, but the sort of the calf, the lower calf. So I would say, to your point in the first question, it's not really, they've evolved. They're not as controversial anymore, and they can be actually pretty definitive. They can actually not only end a fight, but like be a really strong indicator of who won and who lost. So leg kicks are becoming quite dangerous. As far as the Volkanovski part, I do think leg kicks will probably be a big component of his strategy, but they'll probably mix things up because or alter the way they deliver those kicks, because Max Holloway is going to be training for them. So there's going to be whatever you saw in the first is not going to exactly play out the same, but keep in mind, it was an effective tool, so I'm sure they're going to rely on it. And as far as Dan Hooker, which actually tackles both the second part of the first question and also the second question, you know what? The Justin Gaethje fight is an interesting example. Sure, leg kicks were effective from Justin Gaethje's part to Dustin Poirier, but at the end of the day, Dustin Poirier won that fight. I mean, I don't necessarily buy that Dustin Poirier is susceptible to leg kicks. I think he might not be able to take them maybe as well as others, or maybe there might be better people or people that are better at defending them. But certainly, I don't think it's a glaring weakness that he just, like Diaz brothers. The Diaz brothers are notorious for not checking leg kicks, and it's fighters have caught onto that and have used it against them. I don't think that's really the case with Poirier. And also Poirier is so damn tough, and he'll battle through anything that. If Hooker does decide to use leg kicks, they I see him just as an extra component of the fight, but I don't necessarily think, that's sort of the target. That's sort of Dustin Poirier's weakness, and that's the path to victory for Dan Hooker. For Dan Hooker, it's really going to be, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because it's going to be a battle of strikers. I mean, I think, he is a good grappler, but so is Dustin Poirier, but maybe there's something to exploit there. I think, range, it seems to me that Dan Hooker's the longer fighter. He could probably use distance a little bit better, use his jab. Poirier, not that he has had some cardio issues in the past, but like pretty deep into his past, not really anything recent, and a lot of that has been due to fight management. Not necessarily that he's gotten better as an athlete, which I'm sure he has, but I always think he's been a world-class athlete. I just think he's been a lot better at managing his energy. So I think also if Dan Hooker can draw him into a firefighter, into a fight that forces him to expel a lot of energy and throw a lot of heavy shots, maybe that will, be in his favor, especially, down the line in rounds 4 and 5. So we'll see. This is going to be a good fight. This is a good test for both to see kind of where's Dustin Poirier at, because he's been at the top for a really, really long time. And, you can only do that for so many years. The greats can do it for quite some time. Really good fighters can do it for a decent amount of time. Just good fighters usually get there and drop off, and then there's some fighters that never make it. Clearly, Dustin Poirier is a really, really good fighter. We're going to find out if he's great or not. We're going to find out if he's still a contender in that division. I have reasons to believe that he is, but when I'm talking about like top 3, not necessarily just a top 10 fighter, but really being at the world-class level of 155 pounds, being really the best of the best. So it's going to be a good fight. We're going to find out if Poirier is still there, and we're going to find out if Dan Hooker has made the adjustments to be a world-class fighter, because remember, he did take a beating and lose quite badly to Edson Barbosa, and that was sort of a big wake-up call that told everybody, and probably told Dan Hooker as well, you're not ready for the top dogs. But since the Paul Felder victory, as well as a few others, have been quite impressive, and there's reasons to believe that he could be the guy, and this is why this fight makes complete sense, not only stylistically, but from just figuring out what's what in the division. This fight's amazing. So this was the first pairing up 2 questions in this live Q&A. Great questions, by the way, but figured I'd tackle them together rather than get repetitive. All right. Question, I guess, number 3 or number 4 or 3.5. I don't know how you want to count that. It's by the Seaside. Shouts out to the Seaside. Always a good account for questions. They're cool. Or he's cool or she's cool. I don't know. Is there any way Khabib versus Justin Gaethje goes down anywhere other than Abu Dhabi? So great question. As of now, like, who the hell knows? With the pandemic, it's so hard to kind of figure out what's going to happen, what's what. But if I had to put money on it, I think, one, it seems that it would be in Khabib's interest to sort of fight in that part of the world. He's fought there before. That's where he defended his belt last. So I can see him wanting to fight there. He's I don't know if he's back in the US. No, he's probably still in Russia. But keep in mind also the health of his father is, I believe he's getting a lot better now, but it's still, he's still in serious condition. So I don't know if he wants to go back to the States and be really far away from home, where he can just fight fairly close to home. And also, I believe President Dana White did say that this Fight Island series is not just exclusive to July. I believe they're going to be going back and forth, especially if this pandemic still goes down, and if, things have to lock down in the US, and it doesn't lock down in Abu Dhabi, you might just see fights happening there. Who knows? So it's really all up in the air in these times. Like, it's really hard to predict things a month or 2 from now. I mean, this virus seems to be changing epicenters, obviously, as time goes by, and yeah, depending on how governments and how seriously people like take this issue, it's gonna be it's all gonna factor into how this virus is gonna behave and what's life gonna be like in the next few months. So it's really hard to tell, but my guess is that it does happen in Abu Dhabi. I think so. Especially because, like, look, right now, I don't think there's going to be a crowd anytime soon. Experts don't predict stadiums or concerts or anything like that anytime soon. So, to have it in the U.S., I mean, you'd probably have it at the Apex, but any big arena or anything like that, it's not going to make sense. All right, next question is by Mark. This is a fantastic question. One I kind of briefly addressed like 2 videos ago, I think, or 2 live Q&As ago. Who's champ at men's 135 pounds at year's end? Is it the same man at the end of 2021? In my opinion, I say Funkmaster MMA, so Aljamain Sterling, and yes. So Mark here is predicting that Aljamain Sterling becomes champ in 2020, and at the end of 2021, he'll still be champ. So um, that is a very likely scenario, to be quite honest. I believe it. The Funk Master has been looking quite quite sharp. I mean, I think this, when you talk about, there's different stages in a fighter's career, and within those stages, there are many other stages. It's like a sub stage, basically. So certainly, there's no doubt in my mind that Aljamain Sterling right now is in his prime. But it almost feels like he's entering the prime of his prime. He's not early into his prime. He's not deep into his prime and kind of, fading out. No. He's about to get real good, and I don't not that I don't expect him to get much better, but I really do think he's hitting a stride where we're seeing the best that he's got, and he's gonna put out there as far as mixed martial arts is concerned. So that could very well be the case. I think that's a likely scenario. But something that's so fun about that men's bantamweight division is that it's just so damn exciting. I mean, there's so many guys there that are so good and they're at a world-class level. Not only that, but there's so many guys that are also evolving that you're quite not sure what they're going to be yet. Corey Sandhagen is a great example. Even though he lost to Sterling, I really do believe that guy's going to keep improving. Sean O'Malley, right? Cody Garbrandt, even though he's a former champion, that guy's still improving. That guy's still getting better. So I'm just going to pull up here the division and the rankings just to get a good glimpse of the players involved at 135 pounds. But yes, it's such a good division that, like, for the most part in every division, you can kind of figure out, like, yeah, John Jones is probably going to be still champion for a bit. Adesanya's probably going to go hold on to his belt for quite some time. Khabib, probably the same, right? There's certain fighters, Shevchenko, Amanda Nunes, the list goes on, right? But for bantamweight is literally like the top 10, like they could all be champions basically. It's quite crazy. So look, right now we have at UFC 251, we have the bantamweight title fight going down between Peter Yan and Jose Aldo. So what? That's gonna happen like mid-July, right? So that's right in the middle of the year. So I really do think the bantamweight belt gets defended one more time. So potentially whoever wins that, it could very well change hands again this year. So keeping in mind that Sterling's gonna fight the winner of Aldo versus Yan unless there's injury or something bad happens, knock on wood, because obviously not wishing anything bad on Sterling, but let's say he makes it clear to the fight. Same thing with the champion, right? Because there could be injuries to the champion. So aside from any injuries or the pandemic stopping fights or anything like that, Sterling certainly fighting the winner within this year. So I think, believe it or not, I don't know. For me, Yan and Aldo is a bit of a coin toss. I still think I favor Aldo a little bit just because I feel more comfortable picking Aldo because I know what he brings. Whereas Yan is still a fighter that is very good, clearly world-class fighter, but he's a fighter that's a little bit unknown in the sense that he hasn't been fighting the top guys for a very long time. So with Jose Aldo, you know what product you get. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know exactly what he brings to the table. Whereas Yan, there's still some questions surrounding. Honestly, it's not even that many questions surrounding his game. It's mostly like questions about, like, can he keep this consistency, right? Because like I said a couple questions ago, getting to the world class level, fighters can do it. Staying at it is a different different animals. So some fighters can do it, some can't. I believe Peter Yan can, but again, I don't know. That's a belief. So we'll find out eventually over time. So for now, I think Sterling would probably end up fighting Aldo. Let's say with the logic that I currently spit out. Sterling beat Aldo. The problem is that, styles make fights. So it's like Sterling's best chances is to get Aldo to the ground. But Aldo's takedown defense, I mean, talk about so many great featherweights. Frankie Edgar being one of them. Chad Mendes, another great wrestler. The list goes on. So many tried and failed to get him down. A couple might have gotten him down, but he springs right back up. So it's gonna be it's actually a tough matchup for Sterling. So I would say Aldo stays champion in 2021, and it's pretty clear that he's probably still prime, but towards the end of it. I think Sterling eventually gets a hold of the title, but I think 2020 Aldo finishes as champion. That's my guess. But again, this division's so wild, so good that I don't really feel I wouldn't bet on that. Anything can happen in this division. Also, Cody Garbrandt's coming in hot as well. Like, who the hell knows? But that's sort of my guess. All right. Wait, hold on a second. Did I miss a question? Nope. All right, this is a fun question. Davey Boy, 1395. Does Mike Perry have a corner for his upcoming fight? How is no one talking about this? Last I heard, it was his 18-year-old girlfriend and her friend. Both no MMA experience. Crazy. So, again, I'm just reading the question. I don't know if Mike Perry's girlfriend is 18 years old. I have no idea. In fact, and it's not like no one's talking about it because, again, my colleague Mike Bong, he did I believe, it was his interview with Mike Perry where Mike Perry revealed at that point in time that he was gonna have no corner and his girlfriend was gonna corner him, which is bizarre, right? It's quite crazy, but I mean, it's Mike Perry, right? I kind of didn't take it all that seriously, and then I believe Mike, and this is not Mike Perry, but Mike Bong did another interview with Mickey Gall, and then Mickey Gall kind of weighed in, and then it seemed to me that it kind of did get a little bit of traction. It was talked about, but again, it's kind of hard to. Not that Mike Perry's not a believable guy or a guy you can trust, but he's also done things like, for example, he posted that one video of him all beat up and cut, and his hands were all messed up. And everybody kind of freaked out, and they're like, wait, is this fight still on? Like, this guy looks not in good condition. And then again, I don't know if this is a fact. Somebody will have to ask Mike Perry. In fact, Thursday at Media Day, I'll ask him if I get a chance. But yeah, and then Dana White says, no, that's an old video. The fight's still on, and it clearly is. So, again, is he? I also saw a recent picture. I don't know if it was posted by his account, but another MMA account kind of just posted it or reposted it. I don't know who took it, but it was someone holding the ID of or the corner credential of who I think is Mike Perry's girlfriend, and with Mike Perry in the background, and there was no other corner men or women around there. So I don't know if he's trolling us. It could be a troll job, so keep that in mind. But also, it really wouldn't surprise me if Mike Perry would pull something off like that. It wouldn't. It really wouldn't. So I don't know. To answer your question, I have no idea, but we'll get a more clear answer on the situation deeper into the week, especially with Media Day. I will ask that for sure. If not, if another media member or someone or another colleague asks Perry first. But if no one asks, I'm definitely gonna ask about that. But certainly a very bizarre situation, but he's a bizarre guy, so what do you expect? But I'm excited for it. Mike Perry always brings it. He's a fun fighter to watch, certainly. All right, this is the last question on Twitter, and then I'll take things over to the YouTube live chat. So if you missed the beginning of the video, again, you guys ask via Twitter. I tackle those first. Those get priority, and then I switch over to YouTube live chat and answer those questions there. So if you didn't get time to ask on Twitter, it's all good. You can throw it on the YouTube live chat, and I'll get to it in just a few minutes here. So Apas of Wokeness, back at it again. He says, last one. Can we end fighters on a one-fight winning streak? Is that even a win streak? I don't know. Getting title shots. I get it when it's a last-minute replacement change, but too many times we heard of people like Ortega and Dustin say they just need one win to get back in a title shot, especially in a stacked division. It's crazy. Yes, it's crazy. And again, if you've been following me for quite some time, you probably know the answer to this, which is I'm a big fan of, look, if I think there should be rules, certain rules placed as far as the rankings. And the rankings, we can get into that as well. It was a bit of a hot topic on today on Twitter, on MMA Twitter. And I have some thoughts about that. So we can get into it later. So if you guys want to throw a question about that on the YouTube live chat, I'd be more than glad to answer it. But anyways, without derailing off here too much, yeah, I believe there needs to be some sort of rules. Like, look, unless again, I'm all in for immediate rematches. Again, if it's controversial or if the person that lost the title, the champion, is in a situation where they're a big name and they're too deep into their prime to sort of build another title run. So it's just like, all right, you got probably like a year left in the world class level. This is not enough time to get 3 fights in and become another contender. Just run it back. And if you got equity, if you've built title defenses, F it, let's do it. Now, as far as coming off a loss and beating somebody and then getting an immediate shot, or losing the belt, winning one, and then getting back at it, I'm not a big fan of it. I think, if you lose the title, you need to get, if you lose the title decisively, you should be removed from the top 5. You should be placed at 6 minimum. And then you should probably need 2 wins to get back to a title shot. I'm not a big fan of guys that are maybe 1-1 in their last 2 fighting for the belt. I don't think that should be the case. It should be awarded to the guy that's winning the most fights, that's proven to be the top contender in that division. And you do that by putting on wins together and building on win streaks. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. It happens though because this sport is driven by star power. And often you don't have to be the most skilled guy, but if you, there's a bunch of factors. If you have big power, like big star power, you can get title shots. Obviously, you still need to win some fights. You can't be like losing everything. And also timing. Look at Burns. Look at Durinho Burns. If the UFC has a schedule and they move on and they put certain amount of fights a year and they put certain amount of title fights a year, and if you're not able to fight at a certain day, well, all right, that's too bad. We'll move on to the next guy. So there's a few factors that kind of mix in there. But I agree with you, man. I'd like to see contenders that fight for belts, have build win streaks. I don't like seeing, again, coming off a loss and being right there. So for Dustin Poirier's case, like I love Dustin's style. I love watching him as a fighter. I've interviewed Dustin several times. Nice guy. But he just lost to Khabib. Like I don't want to see it again. It's been less than a year since they fought. So beat Dan Hooker, maybe win another time. And again, if you're beating world-class fighters, I think 2 wins should be sufficient to be right back up there. But I don't think a win over somebody, especially like Dan Hooker, he's not he's not the number 1 contender right now at the time. So I don't think that'll be enough for him to get a title shot. Now, it changes the conversation. I'm obviously assuming that Khabib Nurmagomedov is going to beat Justin Gaethje. I think if Justin Gaethje does win and he's the champion, I think there could be a little loophole there with the rule that I kind of just put on. Because, look, he does have a somewhat recent win over Gaethje, and that was a fun fight. And if that's the case, then, it is a fresh matchup. So I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it if that's the case. So there's always loopholes to everything. But in general, yes, I'd like to see fighters that challenge for a belt being winning streaks. And winning streaks is more than one. I don't think a 1-fight win streak is an actual win streak. Streak is multiple, whether it's 2. That's the bare minimum. But 2, 3, and beyond. But 1 fight, you're not on a 1-fight win streak. 1 fight, you snapped a you bounce back from a loss or you snapped a losing streak. But there's no such thing as a one fight win streak, in my opinion. All right, so I lied. There was one more question on Twitter, but again, it wasn't on the rundown because it was sort of asked last minute as I was about to go live. But I do think it's a good question, and that is by Michael Terrell, a longtime viewer here, and yes. So right off the bat, he admits his own mistakes, his wrongdoings. Sorry for the late submission. Would fighter pay be such a big deal if there was no Reebok deal? So fantastic question. Another big topic of conversation has been fighters pay in recent times. A little less this week, but it's still nonetheless very much a topic in discussion, given the fact that there's so many stars kind of going against, not really going against the UFC, but vouching and sort of making public their discontent with not only fighter pay, but beyond that, fighter share revenue from the UFC side. So yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, to be honest, I feel like fighter pay wouldn't be such a big deal if there was no Reebok deal. And the Reebok deal is really not paying, from what I know and from, I've been covering the sport for several years now. It seems fighters had a way bigger window of opportunity to make money from sponsors without the Reebok deal than with the Reebok deal. And I know Dana White said like they had signed like I think it was like $70 million deal with Reebok, and all that was going 100% to the fighters. But someone recently did the math, and I think they were around 33 million dished out to the fighters, and the deal comes to an end this year. At the end of this year. So clearly, they're not getting close to that 70 million. So it wasn't really awarded 100% to the fighters. And, for example, John Jones was sponsored by Nike. Demetrius Johnson was sponsored by Xbox. Xbox is freaking huge. It's really, as far as video games is concerned, it's Xbox and PlayStation. Like, I'm an Xbox user. Dude, they're paying big bucks. I'm guarantee you Xbox was dishing out more money than Reebok. And not only that, but what if you have your own company and you want to promote that, right? You can wear that as a sponsor and a few other things. So, I think fighters' discontent sometimes is sure, it's money, because at the end of the day, money is the biggest driving force. But there's also factors in play, and that's a little bit of freedom, right? A little bit of freedom in the sense of being able to get your own sponsors, right? There's people that even if they pay the same, some people want to be associated with certain brands because it's part of who they are. For example, the perfect example, Demetrius Johnson, a gamer. I guarantee you, if Xbox offered him the same amount of money that Reebok is offering him to fight, to sport their logos and his shorts to fight, guarantee you he'd go with Xbox. That's part of his brand. That's part of who he is. So I believe with a little bit more freedom, they'd be just in general just a little bit more happy. So even something as dumb as Bryce Mitchell complaining about the uniforms being so uniform and being so lame. He wants camo shorts. Dude, if there was no Reebok, he could have done that on his own and gotten camo shorts from whatever clothing company he wanted, and he would have been fighting on camo shorts since day one, and this wouldn't have been a whole thing. And he would have been much happier just walking out there with camo shorts. Guys that have big personalities, such as Alex Caceres, I talked to him a while ago, and he's like, yeah, like I'm always this flashy guy, and this, MMA and mixed martial arts is a sport of self-expression, and here you are, being told what to wear, what colors to wear. Like, I don't like that. This was, I interviewed him a while back. This was when I was still with MMA fighting, as far as that specific subject is concerned. So, yeah, I agree with you. Fighters pay would be a little bit less of it. I think it's still a big deal because I think fighters are starting to have an issue with the revenue share. Like, yo, wait a minute. Why 8 to 20% when other sports is 50-50? And at the end of the day, who's the product here? Like, without fighters, there's no MMA, period. You can do without sponsors, there's still MMA. Without crowds, there's still MMA. Without etc., you name it, there could still be fighting. The key ingredient here are fighters. So I think it would be a little bit less of a deal, fighters pay, if there was no Reebok deal. And but I still think, it wouldn't solve the issue, to answer your question. So I still think it'd be a big deal, but it'd help, in my opinion. All right, so that does it for the Twitter questions. Look how freaking crisp I look, man. See, shouts out to the super chat donations. Again, every single penny goes to this channel, so I appreciate the support. So, anyways, this is the time where I take things over to the live chat, the YouTube live chat. So, if you got questions, throw them in now, and I'll answer them. I like to go about an hour, so I started at 8:30. Actually, blazed through these questions fairly quickly, so we got about 24 minutes here to answer of YouTube questions. So yeah. By the way, I've kind of been rethinking the starting time for these things. I'm not set on like the 7:30 mark is just convenient for me, but it's not set in stone. Like if you guys think it could be a little bit more convenient for you guys, and I'll actually put a poll on this on the community tab on my YouTube channel after I'm done with this. I'd like to get your thoughts about like starting times for this thing. I could bump it all the way to 8:30. I don't mind doing an 8:30 p.m. Tuesday live Q&A. I also wouldn't mind doing like a 10 a.m. one. I think that those would probably be like or 10:30 a.m. That's Eastern time, of course. Those would probably be like the options we got. But yeah, if there's something that works better for most of you guys beyond 7:30 or aside from 7:30, I'm definitely interested in exploring that. So yeah, be on the lookout for that poll because I want to get your thoughts on that. I'll probably run it a couple times because I know everyone won't vote tonight. So and then make a decision on that. Anyways. Amy Wee. Shouts out to Amy Wee. How come Anthony Smith already has another fight? So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal. The guy fought a bit ago, right, against Teixeira. I mean, during this pandemic, kind of like my times are all screwed up. So it kind of feels like a long time, but a lot of things feel like a long time, to be honest. Just like a month ago feels like almost a year ago. But anyways, I think his suspension's done. The athletic commissions dish out a suspension. They look at you. They tell you, okay, you can't spar within X amount of days, or you can return to training just after you get medical clearance in 30 days. If the physician sees you in 30 days and decides you're not ready to return, that gets extended, etc. So the UFC always does a good job at respecting that. So I don't think they would book him in a fight. One, if he wouldn't take a fight. One, if he wasn't ready physically. Two, if the suspension that he got from the Gloria Teixeira fight was still in play. So I think he's good. And look, fighting is not good for your health, period. Keep that in mind. Like, what these guys are doing and girls are not, it's just not good for the health, period. But they're going to do it anyways because that's their profession. That's what they do. It's fighting. It's like drinking, basically. Drinking in any circumstance is not good for you, period. It toxifies, it brings toxins to your body. But, yeah, people do it. And it's legal, so yeah. Anyways, the hell is this? Okay, Tanguin says, should a non-fighter be allowed to talk MMA like Ario and Luke? Yeah, I'm talking MMA right now. I feel like that's a big misconception that fans have. Like, oh, because you don't fight, you're not allowed to speak on the sport. That's not true. If you fight, you might have a different perspective on it, and you might be able to give insight that other people that don't fight might not be able to. But you can still have an informed opinion and an educated opinion without getting into the cage or the octagon. Okay. Well, these are fun questions. You guys know I have a little bit of a matchmaker brain. So, Marquestrada says 155 has too many moving pieces to predict matchups like that, especially with top 5. Oh wait, that's not a question. I think he was just referring to a comment I had when I was talking lightweight division and Poirier Hooker and Khabib. Justin Gaethje. Okay, Dars Vong Nang. Okay, fun question. I like that. If you were able to erase all upcoming UFC Championship bouts and remake them, which matchups would you choose for each weight class? Okay, so that's keeping in mind that there are some divisions that are currently not booked for title fights, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like light heavyweight has no title fight booked, so that's only the upcoming UFC Championship bouts that are in play. So let's pull up the what's it called? Let's pull up the UFC events and take a good look at what championship fights are currently booked. I mean, I know them, from the top of my head, but I just want to make sure I get the order right. So let's see. All right, so the next championship fight, I believe, is going to be in Fight Island. That will be July 12th. That will be UFC 251, Usman versus Burns. But that won't actually be the first title fight. The first title fight will be Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo, which obviously will be happening first as far as the card order. So yeah, Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. This is a weird one. For a long time, I was saying that I really wanted to see Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling, and I still stand by the fact that I think that those two were the most deserving contenders. However, if I have a matchmaking hat on, I'm also not only in the lookout for the sport, but the promotion as well. And I actually do agree with Corey Sanhagen's analysis of this fight. And leading up to his fight with Sterling, he basically, he didn't like the fight, but he understood it and he thought it made sense, and he explained why, which was basically, look, Aldo's a big name. And the truth is that he might not be a huge pay-per-view draw. He's never been, but he's certainly more well-known than Peter Yan. He's certainly more well-known than Aljamain Sterling. He's certainly, I would dare to say, the most well-known fighter in the bantamweight division right now. That's all, keeping in mind that Henry Cejudo retired. Second biggest star, right? You can make a case that maybe Cody Garbrandt, believe it or not, Cody Garbrandt has a lot of traction. Like how I usually measure it is because I have a lot of friends that are just casuals, and whenever big fights or interesting fights come around, they'll text me, "Yo, who you got?" Or they ask me random questions. And every time Cody Garbrandt fights, people ask me about him. And I have a few friends that don't really follow MMA, but they follow him. Don't ask me why, but the dude definitely has something that, apart from his exciting fighting style and knockouts, he has something that's appealing to people. So, so maybe Jose Aldo, maybe Garbrandt with a certain demographic could match Aldo in power. But Aldo's got an entire country behind him. He also has a lot of history behind him. So fighting Peter Yan, if Yan were to beat him, it legitimizes Peter Yan. And then once Peter Yan fights Aljamain Sterling, it's a much bigger fight than it would originally would be. So I do agree with that. And look, if Yan loses to Aldo, all of a sudden you got the greatest featherweight of all time, kind of cleaning up not cleaning up because there's nothing to clean up, but kind of Jose Aldo 2.0 back with a championship belt, adding another belt to his legacy, really becoming one of the greatest lightweight, and by lightweight I don't mean 155 pounds, but just lightweight in general, one of the greatest lightweights in the history of the sport, probably the greatest, really, if you think about it. Like, if you think about it from 155 below, who's the greatest, like who's achieved the most? Maybe BJ Penn, but like Jose Aldo would definitely have a good argument if he were to, one, be the greatest featherweight of all time and capture the bantamweight belt. And if he goes on to defend that, forget about it. He's running with that. So anyways, so then that all of a sudden his stock just rises, and then the Sterling fight just becomes even bigger. So ultimately, I do think it was the right call, even though from a sporting standpoint, it doesn't make the most sense. So again, going on a tangent here, but I'd keep that fight. Believe it or not, I'd keep it. Now, the next fight that would be happening, it would be Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. I wrote a piece on MMA Junkie exactly about this, kind of grading the recent announcement of championship bouts on, the ones I'm the most excited for, right, compared to the least. And Volkanovski versus Holloway was on the bottom. I think it's a great fight. I think we'll see world-class MMA. I think it's two of the best featherweights for sure involved right there. Certainly, Max Holloway's built some equity to demand an immediate rematch, and I say demand, but maybe not deserve. There's a difference there. I mean, there's a case. There's certainly a case for an immediate rematch, yes, but a case I wouldn't take, a case I wouldn't buy. Why? Because look, again, like I said, immediate rematches are for controversial fights. I thought Volkanovski won that fight pretty cleanly. Immediate rematches are for fighters that are too deep into their prime, say like perfect example, Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier, too deep into their prime to go back down to the queue and build on a crazy win streak and get back to the title. Like, yeah, you might get back to the title shot, but by the time you fight for the title, you might not be a world-class fighter anymore. And I don't think those two circumstances apply to Max Holloway. The dude's young as hell. And yes, he's had some mileage, but I think it would be to his benefit to take a break from fighting the best person in the division every single time. And yes, he's not champion here, but he's fighting the best person in the division, and that's Alexander Volkanovski. So I think he would benefit from just taking a break from fighting, the toughest competition, in the weight class at the time. So, I would have liked to seen somebody else challenge Volkanovski, Korean Zombie, throw Zabit in there, F it, throw Jair in there, F it. Just get the ball rolling on these matchups. I think that fight makes the division a tad stale. And again, like I said, I'd like to see Holloway take a little bit of a break from fighting this level opposition. And if you see it in boxing, champions do it all the time. They fight guys that don't deserve to fight for the belt. And there's a science. There's a science. You can't just redline it the entire time, man. You gotta ease on the pedal a little bit. But anyways, I'm still not counting him out. I give him a good shot in beating Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski should still be the favorite, but yeah. So anyways, I would have made that fight. So I would have scrapped that fight, and I would have made Volkanovski Korean Zombie. Yeah, why not? Then after that is Kamaru Usman versus Burns. I wanted to see Usman versus Masvidal. I think that was the fight to make. I actually like Burns' chances a little bit more. I also mentioned that in the piece that I wrote. But I just think he was the more deserving contender. And yes, Burns has put in super impressive performances, and he also deserves to fight for the belt. You can have multiple deserving contenders. But I don't know. That Usman Masvidal fight was teased for so long that I wanted to see it. And unfortunately, we're not. But look, Burns versus Usman is not a bad plan B. But I would have scrapped that, paid Masvidal what he deserved, and made that fight instead. All right, so that all happens at UFC 251. And then the next title fight after that is Figueiredo versus Benavidez 2. I would have kept that intact. Benavidez needs to be in that conversation. Figueiredo didn't make weight the first time. There was that headbutt as well. Controversial. Run that shit back. Then the next title fight is Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier 3. I absolutely love that fight. I think it should have happened sooner, but obviously there was injury involved. Also, the pandemic hit, and Miocic is a first responder, so can't fault him from trying to better the world and help his community. So, yes. And those are so far the only title fights that are scheduled. So, really, the only one I would scrap or the only two would be Volkanovski versus Holloway and Usman versus Burns. The other two I would keep. Am I missing any other title fights? Let me know in the chat. No, I think that was it, right? Yep. All right. Anyways, let's keep answering these questions. We got 10 more minutes. Okay, I'll answer this real quick. JG, do you believe it's okay that Jim Miller, 208K, made more than Blades, 180K, when one is a journeyman who opened up the card and the other is a top 5 ranked fighter who main evented? Well, you can say that Jim Miller has more history in the UFC. You can say that Jim Miller has, he's certainly been around for longer. Look, you're in a company long. You start building, building your way up the pay structure. That's how it works. I mean, some people get kind of stuck, but for the most part, that's how it works. I think it's more on the lines of Blades should be making more money, but I don't think Jim Miller should be taking less money. I think fighters should get as much money as they possibly can, and yeah, it comes down to like what your manager can negotiate as a contract. So I think these two cases are independent. I don't think there isn't a sense of is this fair or not. No, Jim Miller got what he was able to get, and Blades was able to get what he was able to get, and that's that. Why is Aspen Ladd not fighting? From what I think was reported, she had to pull out because of injury. I'm not quite sure, or maybe I heard that, but it's not official. I don't know. I don't know out of the top of my head. Okay. All right. Yeah. Fuck it. I'll get into this. Marco Aceves. Did you see John Jones is getting mad at Hollister for using the word Negro for the black jeans section? Your thoughts? Um, yeah. So I get it, but like I didn't really like Negro is also black in Spanish. This is actually funny. When I first moved to this country, I started sixth grade, and I had a friend, a Colombian at the time, that I met in class. I believe it was like what class was that? I think it was chorus. Like they made us take chorus in sixth grade, and this guy was from Barranquilla, and I forgot what we were talking about, but he said negro, but like negro as in the color, like we were talking in Spanish, and I think some girl that was sitting nearby, she was black, and she heard something, misunderstood something, and heard something else, and accused him from using the N word, and then he got in trouble. But then I think somebody else was nearby, and he's like, no, I know Spanish. Some kid that I think some Asian kid that took Spanish, and he's like, no, I know what he said. And then my friend was cool, but yeah, I don't know. That's like a difficult question, but I saw the sign and I didn't think it was offensive. But again, I'm not a person of color. I'm not black, so I don't know if it offends other black people, but I don't think it was there was any racist thing behind it. I don't know, but yeah, I did see that. Again, we're living in a time where because all this, with police brutality and all like racism and all these other things are being brought up that people are just kind of I don't want to say on edge, but like people are just this is more in our minds than ever before. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But okay, Batman, Poirier, Hooker, method of victory and thinking behind it. Dude, this one's a close one. I'm going with Poirier, much along the same lines of thinking of the Aldo Yan fight. Like Poirier is just a safer pick. I know a lot more about Poirier than I know about Hooker. We still do know a decent amount about Hooker, but I think Poirier at his best beats Hooker. But again, Hooker is evolving, so I do have reservations in the sense that he could very well, and this is 100% plausible, that evolved to a manner that he could best Dustin Poirier. I acknowledge that, and that's why I think this fight is so close. But if I had to bet money on it, if I was forced to, I would pick Dustin Poirier. Mr. Gamer, Danny, who are your top 5 favorite fighters to watch? Also, how do you get fighters to agree to interviews? Do you like to be? Do you need to be? Wait, do you need like to be buddies with the managers? Are you interviewing any fighters here? Um, so this channel is basically just like kind of like opinion content from my own. I wanted to keep working on my video skills, and this is a perfect opportunity for me to do that, having an outlet where like whenever I want I can just hop on a stream and do one. So I like having that freedom. So that's cool. But as far as the interviews, like, my job still, this is like a little side project of mine. My main focus is my work with MMA Junkie. So all the interviews that I do will go on the MMA Junkie YouTube channel. There's no interviews that will in English that will go on my YouTube channel. Any interview that I do involving a fighter or anything MMA related will go on MMA Junkie. Now, on occasion, I have guests, but it's not really about interviewing them. Like, for example, I had Shane Burgos who fought over the weekend, had a tough loss against Josh Emmett in a very, very exciting fight. I had him, coming on this channel to break down for pre and post fight analysis of UFC 249. So I might do that from time to time, where I might have a guest that's a fighter or someone related to MMA. For last week's card, I had Nathan Williams from Waves, a great band. I listen to his music all the time, and I thought it was actually kind of cool that he's an MMA fan. So that's pretty dope. So yeah, things like that, but not necessarily. I won't have like a straight up news interview on my channel. No. And as far as like how do I get fighters to do interviews? Yeah, I mean, you need to have like relationship with managers. Obviously that helps. That's it. That's a main avenue of how you get interviews. But also I have direct relationships with a lot of fighters that I have their numbers and I can just text them without going through their manager and be like, yo, what's going on, and ask for an interview. So there's different ways, certainly. Also, events provide opportunities for you to do interviews as well, right? The UFC has media day, so you can do interviews there. Recently, Dominance MMA, the management company owned by Ali Abdelaziz, they had a media day of their own. Sometimes, companies will bring in fighters. For example, one time I went to an EA Sports thing that was promoting the new UFC video game. This was like 2018, I think, UFC EA3 or whatever, and they had Demetrius Johnson there. So it all depends. There's a lot of different avenues where you can get access to fighters and interviewing them. Why is this thing so big? I just realized that. Let me make it smaller. Can I? I guess not. Whatever, dude. Your question was thick. Look at that. It's like taking all my screen. Thick with like 3 C's, bro. All right. Drinking a Colombian coffee, actually, says Richo. Good sir. Colombian coffee is the best. Marque Estrada, ¿hablas español? Sí. Nací en Colombia, crecí en Colombia, hablo español. De hecho, recientemente empecé un canal en español donde hago entrevistas en español. Las hago para MMA Junkie. Decidí simplemente, en vez de tener el audio y nada más usar el audio para la historia, decidí agregarle el componente de video y tener ya la entrevista en español para que la gente hispana y latina la pueda ver. Entonces, sí, hablo español. Ese es mi primer idioma. Just asking me if I speak Spanish. I said yes. Long story short. Also, I like I just said in this little question, I started a Spanish YouTube channel. Basically, every interview that I do, so don't feel like you're missing out. Every interview that I do, it's Spanish. That I was doing for MMA Junkie, I'm still doing it, but instead of just doing it over the phone and just leaving the audio on my computer, I'm dressing it up a little bit more, putting the video component, and then adding that to a YouTube channel. So you can watch the full interview in Spanish, and don't worry, again, you're not missing out because that interview, the main contents will go on MMAJunkie.com like they normally do. So it doesn't change anything. The only thing is that I'm adding the extra component of actually having the Spanish content out there. So, for example, I interviewed Irene Aldana. Usually, I talk to her in Spanish because that's her main language and that's how we best communicate. And usually I would just talk to her over the phone and write a story, and that's that. Now, doing the same thing, but got the video component. So you guys want to listen to some Spanish content, that's available. And it's called Hablemos MMA, and it's featured on my YouTube channel as far as where to find it. So if you go to my main YouTube channel, in the right corner, there's some featured channels, and it's Hablemos MMA and MMA Junkie. So you can check that out there. And also interviewed Bruno Canetti, Combate America's featherweight champion, also little brother of UFC Bantamweight, Guido Canetti. He got shot in the chest recently, and I did a whole interview, like 20 minutes, just talking about that. That's up on the channel as well, and I believe the story on MMA Junkie is coming out tomorrow morning, so watch out for that. Crazy story, man. It's scary as shit, and that was one of the reasons why I love Colombia, and this happened in Argentina, but I think it applies to all Latin America. And I've had thoughts, like, at some point in my life, maybe I'd like to live in Colombia again, but you hear of those kind of stories, and and it turns you off from living in Latin America. Because dude, there's people like it happens in the news. They get killed for cell phones. Like, it necessarily doesn't happen to tourists. So don't get alarmed if you plan on visiting, because tourism is a big part of Colombia, the Colombian economy. So I think a lot of locals respect tourists. But if you're just like a regular, like, dude, your bike gets stolen, your cell phone can get stolen. It happens often, and if you resist, sometimes things ends quite poorly, and you get shot. So yeah, all that shit's scary, man. But yeah, he's fine now. He's okay. And yeah, that story's dropping soon on MMA Junkie. Anonymous dude 123 donated to super chat. Shouts out. And he says, enjoy the games, Danny. Yes, one of these days, probably this week, maybe if I got time, I'll do a Warzone stream on Twitch. Dude, I'm getting good, man. I'm getting good. All right, what time is it? It is 9:32. So I'll answer one more and get out of here. Let's see. Okay. Wait. All right, yeah. So one more question here. I was just making sure there was maybe no other questions that would catch my mind. No, I missed it. Where is it? All right. By Tokeni B. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Will Cejudo come out of retirement? Who should he fight? Look, I think Cejudo wants to. Obviously, money was a thing, but I think I don't think no. He did say also family was a big thing to him. And again, I believe it when he says it. He's a guy that's been competing at a world-class level in wrestling and MMA for really the majority of his life. And to be a world-class athlete, especially at that level, we're talking about Olympic gold medalist, former flyweight champion, former bantamweight champion. To be at that level, dude, you got to sacrifice so much, not only in the gym and with your body, but also on your personal life, dude. I mean, you're still a human being. You got 24 hours in a day. And a third of that you probably spend sleeping, and then the 2/3 of that, you have time to do things. And, to be a world-class level at anything, you got to invest time. And yeah, and that can take a toll on your personal life and stuff like that. So I do believe when he says he's a little tired of putting too much time into that and wants to focus on himself. Completely fair. So, do that. Enjoy your life, man. And although he might not have the money that he wants, I'm pretty sure he's got to be like well off. Again, I don't think he's got any big financial worries. But again, I'm not his financial advisor or anything like that. Come back when the game's ready. Let bantamweight sort itself out. Let the champion become champion, defend the belt, become established, and then come back for a super fight. That's if you want to come back, of course. If not, look, you had a fantastic career and you retired as one of the greatest lightweight fighters ever, and certainly one of the greatest combat sports athletes ever. Definitely, pound for pound, up there. So yeah, if he wants to come back, I say just wait it out. And if he doesn't, it's fine as well. So anyways, yeah, that does it for the questions. I'm gonna get out of here. Just a quick reminder: thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. Try to make this thing grow. And again, keep a lookout for the poll that I'm gonna post on the community tab on my YouTube channel to figure out what kind of what kind of time suits suits best for everybody or the majority of you guys. So again, I'm down to change this if it's for benefit for most people. So yeah, look out for the poll, and I'll be dropping that, and I'll probably drop it for a few weeks just to get a bigger drawing pool. And what else do I have coming up? We have a pretty good fight coming up. Big card, MMA Junkies there to cover it with John Morgan. I think, well, no, he's on furlough. But Kenny will be there. Actually, I don't know how that's gonna work out, but we'll have coverage 100%. I'm sure Kenny will be there. Yeah, and yeah, I'm working on some interviews, so watch out for that as well. I'm working on a few things. Hopefully this week they'll come out. So we'll see. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Have a good week. I appreciate the people that donated to Super Chat. Appreciate the people that submitted questions via Twitter. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, all that. Peace out, and yeah, have a good week and enjoy the fights. Later.